Speaker Mark Viverito.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to jump off a little bit on some of the points that have been made, but let me just read quickly my prepared remarks, and along the way I will pepper it with some reaction. First of all, we can't dismiss the fact that, first of all, as similar to you, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico to the age of 18. My family continues to live there, so I'm very, very concerned, obviously, and utilize the voice that I have in this platform to raise concerns about issues in Puerto Rico that a lot of times do not get any sort of mainstream coverage. But let's be very clear about a couple of things. One, Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. Two, when people talk about words that are being utilized here, this is not an oversight board, this is a control board. This is a control board that is appointments, and with all due respect to the people here that sit on the board, that the majority of representatives on the board are Republican appointees that have experience and interests that come from a financial background, banks, hedge funds, et cetera. The interest of the Fiscal Control Board right now is pretty much to be concerned about the interests of the creditors over the interests of the people. And that is really, at essence, what is a problem here. The voice of the people on the island, I think, is being dismissed when it comes to the issue of the debt crisis and of the Fiscal Control Board. There has been a call that there be an extensive audit of the current debt. How is it that we arrived at this debt? Is the debt constitutional? Is part of it debt that is unconstitutional that should be written off? These are things that are not being addressed, right? There was a commission that was convened that has been dismissed by this current governor. It's a new governor as of January. That commission that was extensively auditing the debt, that included representation of the people, has been dismissed. It has not been reconvened. There is another commission that has been convened by the current governor, but it does not have the same interest or intent that the prior commission that was named had. So I think those are a couple of clarifications. So, I've been very clear from the onset about my opposition to the Fiscal Control Board and the cynical name that has been given of promesa, which is a falsehood. There is no promise here of a future for the island in terms of what this control board will be recommending. Right now, what we've seen is simply austerity measures that have been put in place that we have seen in other countries have proven inefficient and ineffective. That is a reality. We are repeating mistakes that clearly have been shown to not produce a positive result. And here, my concern is for the people of Puerto Rico. There is absolutely no recommendations or no work that I see that the Fiscal Control Board is taking to talk about economic development on the island, economic growth of the island. Those are things that are not being looked at all. It's all about austerity measures, and those are very serious issues. So I've been clear about my opposition to Promesa. It places control in the hands of federal appointees rather than democratically elected representatives. And not to say that the democratically elected representatives hold no fault here. If the audit that is done proves that there is debt that has been engaged in which is unconstitutional, clearly it is the elected representatives that got us there, from both sides of the aisle, statehooders and Commonwealth representatives. But clearly that is something that we should know, especially the Puerto Rico and the people on the island that are suffering and bearing the brunt of the decisions that this board is going to make. So the board is forcing stringent fiscal oversight over Puerto Rico's government without providing concrete measures to promote growth or restructure Puerto Rico's debt. And that said, it's unfortunately what we have today. So the Puerto Rican government has submitted a fiscal plan as required by the Fiscal Control Board that closes budgetary gaps through measures that include cuts to healthcare spending, cuts to pensions, cuts to the university system, the publicly funded university system, which is a higher education system on the island. And what Puerto Rico needs most of all is substantial and expedited restructuring of its debt. There's no conversation happening about what it is and understanding that there is no bankruptcy clause. I believe Puerto Rico had that protection until the 1980s. Somehow it was removed. But there is no bankruptcy protection. But the vulture funds, the hedge funds, the financiers that got Puerto Rico and helped facilitate this debt need to be at the table, need to take a cut, need to also suffer. It should not only be on the backs of the people of Puerto Rico that have to bear the burden here. So I don't see that happening. I don't see that in any way being something that is being presented or even offered by the creditors. We need to look at economic growth. So again, neoliberal policies that are being recommended are clearly not the solution. And we have seen a lot of pushback in mainstream media here. You have the Boston Globe that talked about the disaster that is the Fiscal Control Board. You talk about the Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, and he said, a commitment to restoring economic growth should be the center of any restructuring proposal or of any viable fiscal plan, end quote. And so we've seen what happens when these negotiations are prolonged. All we have to do is look at European Union, we have to look at Greece. Avoiding a resolution of debt can be used in an attempt to force changes on a society that the people of that society do not support. We have seen some of the recommendations that the present governor, is making to cut the rights of workers in the workforce. I mean, we're seeing some really dire recommendations that are being made. And what we're seeing is a continued people leaving the island because the opportunities do not look, positive. And that is obviously more people leave. It depresses the economy. You create more opportunities for outside investors to come in, buy up real estate. It really is a very serious situation, and unfortunately, it's not getting the level of attention that we need. And so it really, personally, is a concern. So without return to growth, which will require a sustainable debt service with room for Puerto Rico to access new credit, Puerto Rico never will be able to meet its long-term obligations and provide services for its citizens. And clearly, the outlook of federal assistance is bleak when we look at the current administration and what actions we've seen take. We need federal help. It still is needed. Several analysts, including Peter Orszag, have suggested a federally funded EITC for the Commonwealth, adjusted to the local economy. The EITC would boost local income. We've seen the benefits of EITC programs here in New York City. It's been an incredible benefit to individuals. That money just gets reinvested back into the local economy. So that obviously is important. That would be good for economic growth. Proper funding of Medicaid. Puerto Rico does not receive the same level of funding for Medicaid that other states receive. Again, another side effect of being a colony. So those are some of the federal measures that we need, and obviously with the recommendations being presented now on the healthcare front, that's not looking very positive. So the situation in Puerto Rico is critical. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Puerto Rico's unemployment rate climbed from 10.6% in 2006 to a peak of 16.4% in 2010, and it's fallen to 11.8% in 2016. About 60% of Puerto Rico's children live in poverty. We've seen the board impose guidelines on Puerto Rico for restructuring its fiscal governance. What we need to see now is the board's strong leadership in restructuring debt with creditors and advocating for pro-growth measures in Washington. Again, I don't support the board. I wish we could figure out a different way. This is forcefully imposed upon us. In the meantime, I'll give whatever recommendations I can make. Because walking away from the table at this point, walking away from Puerto Rico to me is not an option. We need Puerto Ricans to be considered before the debt. And that is not happening right now. So again, the idea of auditing the debt, which has been dismissed, has to be taken up. I mean, there's really calls on the ground. There was a public petition process that got over 100,000 signatures to support bringing back that commission to audit the debt. And so again, the creditors are being positioned before the people. It needs to be the people before the debt.